Senator Kwon?
I don't think we're cutting right and left. I think the bill proposed this year that I voted on, and that we actually originally all voted unanimously on before it was vetoed. It was to take away 1% of their budget from that was the student registration fees that were going to the athletics department to subsidize it was 1% of their budget, and we asked the director, is it going towards scholarships? Is it going towards what is it going towards? And she promised us that it wasn't going towards scholarship, for one, and for I don't know. I think 1% of the budget is a minor thing, but for me, the bill was more about pushing the athletics department to become more fiscally responsible. I don't think it's feeling the pressure from any sides to become fiscally responsible. I don't think it. I think it's sort of sitting pretty right now. I don't think they're I don't think they're really feeling the burden that the rest of the school is feeling with the budget cuts and with the limited funds that they has. And when I voted for that bill, it wasn't because I don't feel like athletes shouldn't have resources. It wasn't because I hate football. Those are not valid reasons for voting on a bill. I was voting on it because I felt like they should be treated like every other student group and be pushed to become fiscally responsible. Whenever student orgs come into the ASUC to ask for money, we ask them so many questions. We ask them, is it necessary? Are you doing color printing instead of black and white? Is this a luxury? And I don't think those questions are being asked to the athletics department, and they should be.
One thing that Chancellor Bergeneau has brought up on several occasions in support of campus funding for intercollegiate athletics has been the idea of comprehensive excellence. What is your understanding of that concept, Senator Stern?
Comprehensive excellence. I mean, I think, as a campus, we need to make sure that all of our funding is being used appropriately and making sure that we're using it efficiently, making sure that every campus unit has an opportunity to excel. I think UC Berkeley prides itself on excellent academics, and we need to make sure, with this, if we are having to face these cuts, we need to do it in a way that still enables our students to succeed and to thrive. I think an important problem that we need to face this year is the fact that so much of our funding, there isn't a transparent way of viewing it for students. Students haven't really been involved. If you look at our registrations fees, there's a lot of units that I don't know if students really directly benefit from them, and they might disagree. Like maybe it's athletics, and we need to examine that. I know I think about $2.4 million, something in that range, goes towards funding the Pacific Film Archive and BAM and the Berkeley Art Museum. I think that's really more of a good for the city of Berkeley. I don't know how many students really use that. And that's not to say we should cut it, but we should really examine these things and get students involved in the conversation if we want to be an excellent university as the Chancellor was talking about.
Senator Kwon?
Comprehensive excellence. I think that a good budget would be crucial to comprehensive excellence of a school, and I don't think the ASUC or the auxiliary at this point is budgeting properly, and I think part of that has to do with subsidizing departments that run such huge deficits every year with no push to make them fiscally responsible. I think it's true that athletics are important to our school. I would hate to see our school not have an athletics department, but I really don't see the need to give them any special treatment because I feel like we all have the same standards here at Berkeley, and I hold the athletics department with the same standard that I hold the engineering department or the business department, and I don't want to give preferential treatment to any students.
And speaking of the ASUC auxiliary, with the store operations board, there's been a lot of situations where they voted one way to pursue with their vendors, either a lease or negotiations or whatnot, and then a few months later the board reverses itself, and yet the same vendors in the end are still in the Beresler food court, and there's still a significant and threatening problem to the ASUC's finances. Mm-hmm. And an often overlooked aspect of being ASUC president is being one of the voting student members of that board. What do you see is the problem, and what concrete action would you take in order to reinvigorate the ASUC's revenue stream from commercial enterprises? Senator Kwon?
For me, attending these store operations board meetings, one of the major problems I see is disrespect for the process. I feel like a lot of the decisions being made in the SOB meetings are they're not going through the adequate process that is set to make sure that student input is being heard, to make sure that this business is good is going to bring in money. I think the RFP process that we have right now is flawed. I think that we should reevaluate it, but until then, until we have a new process instead, we have to go through that process, because that is the thing that is said to make sure that student input is being heard. And a lot of the delays being caused is because people want to overstep this process, people want to rush things, and it actually causes more delays when you when you do that. So that's one major problem that I see. So.
Senator Stern?
I think, in terms of my seat on the store operations board, any votes that I make or any businesses that I look to bring in, we need to make sure that they're always environmentally sustainable, fit the character of Berkeley. I think after the Panda Express discussion, we know that the students of Berkeley prefer the mom and pop shops to the larger commercial businesses or big business, and I think as president, I'll try to preserve that as strong as I can. I think we also need to, in terms of concrete action, we need to make sure we're filling the vacant spaces that we have in Lower Sproul. It's not just the food vendors, but there's also the vacant spaces, where STA Travel used to be. And those are places that are just lying empty right now and losing money. So I think as president, I would work to fill those spaces as quickly as possible. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be food vendors necessarily, but we need something in there to be generating revenue. Because right now, that's our issue. We're not generating revenue. We have a lot of services that are losing funding right now, and we need to. I think Senator Kwon in the debate mentioned that we should do an audit. Actually, the ASUC does an audit every 3 years because the auxiliary falls under the Ron Coley, the Associate Vice Chancellor of Business Administration and Services. It's a rotating audit that happens every 3 years. So we're actually already doing that right now. And it's important that when we do that audit, we're looking at activity-based costing. So if something is going towards a direct activity, we need to see, is this an activity that students really value, and try and figure out a way to make it more efficient. So,
Senator Kwon, you want to respond?
Well, the thing is, I went to most of the store operations board, or at least several of the store operations board meetings this year, and I've asked them about the audit. I've asked them about what are these miscellaneous funds, why don't we have auditing system? And they actually said we're part of the campus, but we're like a nonprofit, and there were all these weird loopholes. But they told me straight to my face that we didn't need to be audited. We weren't legally bound to have an audit. So this is the information I'm getting is from the auxiliary, from being present at this store operations board meeting, and if we are having an audit, I think it's terrible. The budgets that they're giving us, it's always in a different format. It always has different numbers, and I would fire this auditor and hire a new one in that case. So,
are you in favor of 2 of the Bears Lair vendors who have not received new leases? Are you in favor of them being retained in the court, or when their leases run out this May, should the SOB immediately seek a new vendor for those spaces?
I think they should have the opportunity to bid for this space. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Senator Stern?
As do I. I think they should be able to bid for their space. However, we need to make sure that they are meeting the RFP requirements. If they aren't meeting some of the environmental sustainability standards that we've put in recently, as I don't believe that they are, that needs to be carefully examined. If they can't meet their rent, they can't generate revenue for our student groups, these need to be carefully examined. And if difficult business decisions need to be made, we need to make sure they're ethical decisions, but we need to also be careful that we aren't losing money on these businesses and bringing ones that will generate revenue for us.